Hey guys, welcome back. It's Talsy, and today we're going to talk about how to deal with intrusive thoughts and stop spiraling while you are doing conscious manifesting techniques or as you're expanding your awareness. So let's talk about what are intrusive thoughts, the what ifs. When you have thoughts coming in like you are affirming for something or you are consciously focusing on something, you're saying, I am the version of me that has it, and then you get the what ifs and the doubts and the fears. So say you're affirming in the case of SP and I are in love, and then your mind goes, yeah, but what if this isn't working? But what if my manifestation doesn't come through? But what if I'm setting myself up for disappointment? Or you start looking on the outside and you say, but they haven't texted me, they're probably pulling away again in some cases for some of you. Or what if I'm not pretty enough? I never get what I want. What if I'm not their type? I mean, all these what ifs, etc. Intrusive thoughts. And so I want to break down for you guys, because this is where a lot of people get tripped up. I want to explain really what thoughts are, okay, and their function. And a thought, actually, guys, we have thousands and thousands a day, right? And you can't possibly control every single one. So firstly, I want to debunk the myth that you need to have perfect thoughts, okay? Only if you believe so, right? But your brain is, constantly taking in information. You are constantly having thoughts about things on the daily. You might think, I want to go out and buy a new TV, right? Or I wonder what I'm going to eat for dinner. And then you might think, oh my God, I'm thinking about SP, they're never going to come back. Now, every thought that's coming in is essentially to your subconscious pretty neutral. They're just like sentences, they're things popping in through consciousness. But the difference is, and what some of you need to understand, is a thought really means only what you identify with it as, okay? So, or how much you indulge in it, or how much power you give it. So in the end of the day, a thought in itself is something that means nothing until you dwell in it, you follow it, and you see it as something that has more power over you, and is something that you need to, say, fight. You overanalyze it, or you spiral about it, right? So it's essentially then you feeding it, engaging in it, say in the case of something that feels unfavorable, right? And it's like you're saying, oh, I've had this thought, this is very real. And sometimes things can feel very real, you're feeling very reactive. But basically what you're doing then is you're reinforcing and you're identifying with it, okay? It's a signal that you have something within you that sees this as an aspect of who you are. Okay, so when you follow a thought like, well, SP hasn't texted me, and then you follow that down the rabbit hole, it's really you associating that as a truth and identifying with it. And so you kind of step back into a state. It signals you're in a state or an identity that assumes that this is fact and true, okay? So reality is always reflecting your state, your identity, and nothing else, right? And so thoughts can come and go. We don't have to fight every single thought, but we have to kind of, if you want to stop spirals and you want to consistently be in the version of you that has what you prefer, right? It's as simple as you being aware. If a thought comes up and you feel that you're starting to react, and just to check yourself and say that this thought means nothing, essentially, identifying as a version of you that assumes already that you have something or someone. Well, that's law of assumption, guys. Negative thoughts like, no, I don't have it, or that person won't want me, don't really have any meaning unless you assume so, and you assume that this is the fact, because it's only you that gets to decide. And so it's the emotional charge as well behind the thoughts, or the train of thought that you are going down. You're going to have less of that when you have a very strong self-concept. For example, you've chosen an identity, I have SP, or I have X, or whatever, and you might notice that a thought pops up in the day or whatever, and rather than trying to fight it or affirm over it obsessively, I mean, that is essentially you kind of agreeing with it or giving it power. It's kind of a good tactic to just say, it doesn't really mean much to me, and let it pass. And then return with consistency to the identity of you, because essentially an identity that assumes that you are the version of you that has someone, you're the version of you that's secure, that's loved, etc. A thought that you're indulging in where you have a strong emotional reaction indicates that you have some kind of a a belief, as an identity of you that's really believing and feeding in that. And the identity that you've selected, and you are aligning new thoughts like SP loves me, etc. That, you know, intrusive thought really is not at all in alignment with the identity of you that has something. It's completely within your control, your choice. Whilst it might feel like it's out of your control, this is where we spiral, right? We believe that it's all out of our control. So this is really about like consistency in re-identification, calming yourself down. When you feel that you have an intrusive thought, it really means nothing. It means whatever you say it is. Really, guys, I say that on this channel all the time. It is whatever you say it is. So if you have a thought like, oh, SP doesn't want me, you've been saying, okay, I have SP, and then you say, oh, well, but what if they don't want me? Can you just not feed it or not try to fight it, observe it, and then just say, but that's not true, because I know who I am, right? Just as much as you can also have a thought that means absolutely nothing, like you might think, I do want to go out and buy a TV later, and then that thought goes out of your mind, you get on with your day and you end up not buying the TV, whatever. It doesn't really matter, guys. In the end of the day, whatever you latch on, replay, and engage with on and on and on, that's manifestation, because manifestation is from who you're being and where your focus is persistently, which does include like dominant thoughts, not every single thought. So you don't have to be scared that if you have an intrusive thought, then that means that this is exactly what's going to manifest, okay? It is really coming down to what are you breathing life into? So if you have a strong self-concept, a strong identity, right? The overall one, you must know that you are the power, right? Consciousness. 2, selecting an identity, the identity of you that's calm, secure, feels loved, feels safe, feels chosen, because you get to decide that's who you are. As far as an SP or anything else that you're consciously manifesting, I have it. Why? Because I'm the validation and I assume so. Therefore, anything contrary that's showing up, I don't need to identify with. It's not in alignment with my identity. So you're not even your thoughts, by the way, guys. You're the consciousness behind them. You're the observer, right? And you can choose what's relevant. You can choose what you're feeding. You can choose what is true or not true in your world, in your reality. And each state has different truths, or each identity has beliefs. So you don't need to resist every time something silly pops up. And we have lots of intrusive, weird thoughts, guys. I mean, think about it. Out of thousands and thousands of thoughts, you have like the oddest thoughts sometimes that pop up, and you give them no life because you're just like, that's ridiculous, right? So you kind of need to treat intrusive thoughts in relation to, say, a conscious manifestation in the same way, right? So stabilizing your identity does help this, because you're going to feel more self-empowered. You're not going to feel that you are constantly battling and wavering between old identity where you had very strongly ingrained beliefs and assumptions. But what I'm trying to tell you is that you don't need to, every time an intrusive thought comes in, fear that this means that it's fact, that your manifestation is not materializing, that you don't have it, that this means you're doing something wrong. You don't need to spiral over it. You don't even need to correct it or fix it. You kind of just can treat it like it's a nothing thing. It has no impact unless you say so, okay? So if you guys are interested, I do a lot of work on stabilizing your core identity, and I also explain how you can change your assumptions, therefore, in regards to NSP, why circumstances and conditions are unimportant when it comes to conscious manifesting, and the law of assumption. The law of assumption being anything that you assume to be true will be shown to you. In terms of this video about intrusive thoughts, why not adopt the assumption that those thoughts mean nothing, and basically always return to your decision to be the identity that gets to choose your experience no matter what, right? So a thought only means the meaning that you give it, right? So we need to just control a little bit how much we are feeding and identifying with things that are popping up in an unfavorable way, or just give things as much weight or importance as what we decide. Okay, so you get to decide within your world what you want to pay attention to, what you identify with as true, and it can be a very simple shift, just detaching from a thought. No, it's not true. That's not fact. That's not who I am. Essentially, it's like, I don't identify with that, right? It would be like me saying, I'm very aware. I mean, if I wanted blue hair, guys, I'd have blue hair. But it would be like someone, you know, me getting a thought, oh, I have blue hair, and then saying, I don't have blue hair. I've got brown hair. You understand what I'm saying? So can you just treat unfavorable or intrusive thoughts that pop up? This is going to stop you from dwelling and going down and down and down to the point where you have a full spiral, because the outside's going to then validate. If you spiral, it's just showing you that you're identified with, you know, a version of you that thinks in a certain type of a way. So you follow those thoughts to a version of you, and the outside, you're going to be scanning for evidence and validation to show you that this is who you are. You're the version of you SP doesn't want. You're the version of you that doesn't get what you want. You're the version of you that can't manifest what you want. Nothing ever works. So, you know, all I'm saying to you guys is it doesn't matter. And also emotionally, it's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to sometimes feel sad or depressed or whatever. But like at the same time, you can feel those emotions, but you don't need to put a whole story on top. And go down the rabbit hole of following a whole bunch of intrusive thoughts and saying, I feel like shit, and I had one thought and now I've had 1,000 thoughts and now I don't get what I want. It's actually completely within your control, you deciding what means what, okay? So just stick to your decision that you are the version of you that gets what you want, because it's available to you. And just through your conscious awareness of being who you identify as, the outside must reflect, including your SP. And that's really it, guys. I mean, I hope that helped. If you want to go deeper into conscious manifesting in SP, you know, stabilizing your core identity, self-concept, having the ultimate self-concept, and a bit of what we've gone through in this video, you can check out my course Shifted. The link is in the description box of the video. And in the meantime, I'm sending you guys so much love. I'll check in with you guys soon.